Morning. Yeah, so it's Sunday and the heat wave has passed, it feels like, this morning, and it kind of feels like, thank God for that a little bit. And it's very cool this morning, cool, and a bit of a wind, and it's so good. And I went to bed pretty much on time, about 10, half 10, and there was the England game on, and there was this element where I could have stayed up and watched that and stuff, but there is an element of me wanting to have done that, but I also knew that I was really tired. I was really, really tired, I think, and I had this, I know this side where it's kind of like, well, it's a little bit like the little flash of, well, what's the outcome if I do stay up and watch the England game, And yeah, it's probably nice to do that with the family to a certain extent, but there's also this element of when I'm tired like that, and I want to maintain a routine. It's going to be that today, for example, if I'd watched that and gone to bed at midnight, say, I'd not be feeling like I am feeling this morning, which is I've had a really decent sleep for a change, and I'm not just exhausted, So I think it was a good decision, and I can always watch back the game and stuff like that. So there is this element of, even when there's strong pull factors to doing something out with the routine, it's I find that trying to stick with the sleep schedule relatively is probably a good idea, and I definitely feel like that was a good choice right now, even though it might seem unusual to some folk. So there's this element of sometimes noticing what you need to do, despite everything that's going on, and I guess I was also reflecting on fitness stuff, and there was an element of me wanting to go for a long cycle this morning, but there is this other aspect where I'm rehabbing my back, because I tore my back again recently, last week or whatever, in the last week, and I know it does aggravate it a little bit with the cycling sometimes, so I can feel it a wee bit, but I did 45 minutes of Pilates yesterday, which was really good, and what was a key feature of that was kind of when I'd done it the last time, I'd kind of overdid it a bit, and kind of really gone for the stretches and stuff, and I think it was because I was feeling pretty good, and I was like, okay, but there's this element of I think especially when you're getting older, maybe not particularly, everyone probably, but if you've got old injuries and stuff like that, or problematic areas, I think it is this thing of just incrementally building up your fitness level, over time, steady, consistent, and so there's this idea in my head that it's like, if I can just go to there and not overdo it like I did yesterday, I just did the moves but I didn't overstretch, not like overdoing it, then actually I got it in the bag and I feel really good today, I also did my weights yesterday, which was good, so that's number 2 of the 50 workouts, and I feel good for that, and it's that thing where you start to kind of feel all your muscles again, and I feel good from it. So there's this element of needing to not do like a boom and bust cycle, on the exercise, I think, which is kind of just get that moderate level in, you know, that can be maintained when you've got old injuries or you're on the heavier side, you know, because I am around that like 115, 116 kilos mark still, so there is more strain that goes on the body, you know. Yeah, but I was also had that little thought of like journaling, you know, and how, you know, I kind of sat here about a year ago, it's probably May, June, yeah, I have to double check out all the details, but it's about a year ago, where I sat here about 133, 134 kilos, and it felt like a very big hill to climb, you know, and, you know, my mood was a bit like, you know, and it's amazing really, you know, that a year later I managed to get down to this level, you know, on my weight, you know, and I do feel a lot better for it. Yeah, I feel a lot better for it, but it's these strange things that it's like we struggle to see and notice the difference ourselves, you know, even when we've kind of made progress on things. And so that's why sometimes the video journal thing, when I started that challenge, was really helpful, I think. And what it's made me want to do is like maybe go and do that Kanisari Khan run again, which was about a half marathon that I did during that challenge in the middle of the kind of mountains and lakes in Kazakhstan when I was on holiday, you know. And that was such an amazing little experience that I did, and I'm glad I did it when I turned 42, you know. The next day after, I just went for that big half marathon, you know, by myself early morning, and it was really good. So it's worth doing little journaling and diarying things, because to be honest, if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't really, sometimes I wouldn't really remember it very clearly, you know, and I think it's nice, you know, to do journaling, video diaries, take photos. It's really, really helpful, and there's always times that I look back at little videos and photos of my kids, you know, or my wife and me, and that doing stuff and from back in the day, and it's really good reflective tools, you know, and it's a bit surreal sometimes, you know, because things like this garden, when we turned up here and bought this place, it was like a jungle, you know. It was like been like left to its own devices for about 5, 6, 7 years, and everything had overgrown itself and intergrown, and it was a big matted mess really, and you know, it's that idea of each year we kind of do something new in the garden, or amend something, or tidy something up, or kind of plant something and things like that. And it's very much like that with ourselves a little bit. It's like tending to a garden, you know. We might try and start something off, or learn something new, or try and learn a musical instrument, or, you know, study a little course, and we kind of incrementally kind of change it over time, you know, change the picture. So yeah, so it's a bit of one of those things where it's like, well, I'm kind of doing this thing where I'm thinking, well, what's it going to look like next summer, you know? What's my journal entry going to be looking like next summer, and what would I want it to look like? And, you know, there's an element of me finishing this project management degree off this year, pretty much. And it's been a bit of a slog, to be honest, and there's an element of me being a bit sick of it now, but it's been super helpful and useful as well. But it's a little bit like, yeah, you know, what's my fitness going to be like and I think it's all going to become easier. You know, I can feel all sorts of aches and pains today, like my hamstring a little bit on my left leg, my lower back's still a bit twingy. I can feel my arms, but that's in a good way, generally, apart from my shoulder. But there's this thing of like, we can get these aches and pains a bit, and as long as they're not like, you know, preventing us from doing things, I think it's this idea of doing like an adapted version of what you can manage, you know. So like I managed to do the weights yesterday and the Pilates and go for walks and stuff, and it was alright, you know. But I think sometimes it's that thing of doing what you need to do, you know, yourself sometimes, despite everything else. So like with the football watching, you know, I went to bed, woke up early, went to toilet, went back to bed, and you know, I feel human, you know, after a cooler night's sleep and stuff. So yeah, you doing you amongst everything else, I think is important. But yeah, so I guess maybe that idea of doing your own journal entries and doing your own, you know, video diary or your own journal entry, or taking photos of things and doing little reflections, I think is really super helpful, I've found anyway, and it's quite enjoyable watching back on things, or might be like, oh my, you know, word, what was I thinking at that time, and you know, it just helps you to see things like progress more clearly, or can help you to see what your thinking was at a time versus now, you know. So I think carnivores really helps with that, and that low carb idea. But yesterday I did eat some plof, which my wife made with some lamb, which was nice, which has got rice in it and stuff, so that might have contributed to me sleeping better, I don't know. Yeah, so I kind of had some carbs yesterday. But there is this thing, it's like I'm not, you know, over strict on everything all the time, but I'm, you know, I'll have the odd meal like that the missus hasn't made something for ages like that plof, so it's nice to have something, you know, when you want it, when you fancy something, and yeah. But you know, then forging ahead with what you want to do, but generally, pretty much most of the time, very minimal carbs approach has been super helpful. And I think it is about managing my hormones, so that's basically insulin and stress hormone and stuff like that, you know, and also the consistency with the walking, doing other exercise. I quite fancy a swim today, but we do have stuff to do in the afternoon and things. I might try and go to the gym with my son as well, because he's fancying that, I think. Yeah, so you have a good one, and maybe see about journaling stuff and things like that for yourself, you know.